Okay, here's our note 7.3. We're going to be talking about graphing linear inequalities, so you should probably add that to your title. We're going to talk about graphing linear inequalities on a coordinate plane. So I want you to remember some things. Inequalities, we've got a few different symbols. First of all, these symbols should make you think that we're going to do a closed circle. So when we graph something like that, remember from your IXL today in class that when you graph that, it was closed. Today, when we talk about a line, because we're going to be graphing like lines, not just shading something in, closed should also make you think, so it's closed and a solid line. So for example, my line will be solid, just like you're used to seeing. Now this is a little different. These should make you think open. So those symbols mean open. And instead of being solid now, we can't really graph a line with all sorts of open circles, but we can make it dashed. So if I graph this line, this time it's going to be a dashed line. One thing that you need to know about both of these, solid solutions. So we talked about solutions today. They are on the line. So here solutions are on the line, and solutions are included. If it's a dashed line, that means the line is not included. So when I pick solutions, I can't really pick points on the line, and we'll talk about how we do pick points. The next thing we need to talk about, so if you think about our inequalities, before we would do like open or closed, and we would maybe shade a direction, open, shade the other way. So the symbols would tell us to either shade right or left. Well, now we're not going to have a right or left quite the same way. We're going to be talking about a coordinate plane, so we can't like shade right or left, but we can shade up or down. So if our equation says y is greater or y is greater than or equal to, think about on my y-axis, if I want to go greater, I'm going to be talking about going upwards. So if it says these, we're going to shade above the line. And this will make sense once we start doing some. And then alternately, if you have y is less than or y is less than or equal to, both of those are going to mean to shade. So this is shading. We're going to shade below the line that we have graphed. So you may need to pause and get all of those notes down because you do need these notes before we can move on. All right, so we've got two examples. Here's our first one. And to be able to graph this, we need it to be the y to be by itself. So go ahead and copy that equation. And I'm going to zoom in. We're going to fix this so that y is by itself. So the first thing I need to do is move my negative 14. When I move that, it's going to become positive. So I have 2y is less than negative x plus 14. All right. And then y is almost by itself, but I'm going to need to divide everything by 2. That's how I undo that multiplication. So I'm going to have y is less than, secretly in front of this x is a 1. So this is really negative 1/2 x plus 14 divided by 2 is 7. All right, and before we graph, we need to make two different points. So if you look back at your notes, first of all, because this is less than and it doesn't have a line under it, this is going to be a dashed, I did not write that very well, a dashed line. All right, because that would have been an open circle. And then also this is y is less. So because it's less, we're going to shade below. We need to always make these notes to ourselves before we start any type of graphing. Okay, so it's kind of hard for me to get everything where it belongs. And I am doing one out of the book so that you can see when they don't count correctly. So remember, on my y-axis, just remember your graphing rules. We're going to graph this like it's a normal equation. So this is my starting point, start, and then this is my slope. So I'm going to start at 7. Here, notice that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's my starting point. And my slope tells me to go down 1 and over 2. So I'm going to go down 1 over 2. and that's going to be my next point. I'm going to keep that pattern going. Down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, as many times as I can, because the more accurate I can be, the better my line is going to look. Up 1, backwards 2, up 1, backwards 2. Now this is a dashed line, so the easiest way to draw this as dashed, I think, is to like connect every other set of points so that it looks dashed. We are going to go ahead and draw our arrows on the end. So this looks a little different, right? It should be a dashed line and not solid. And now we need to shade. So to shade, we're looking at the line that they give us. So here's my line. And we said we want to shade below that line. So you've really got two halves of your coordinate plane. I'm going to show this in yellow. You've got this part at the top and this part at the bottom. And we need to think about which one of those is below. So below is right here. So I'm going to be shading this whole section right here. So the final answer that you're going to have is that line that you have drawn plus this part of your graph shaded. If you don't shade, you're not answering the question and you're going to get it wrong. All right, let's look at one more example. Okay, so this one, again, we need to solve for y. So I'm going to recopy my equation so that I have room. -8. So I need to, I'm going to need to move my x. So that's going to be -y less than, if I move it across the equal sign, it's going to change signs. So -2x minus 8. And now I'm going to need to divide. And you should maybe have like a little alarm going off in your head. Anytime you divide by negative, so right here where this star is, you need to be writing a note. If you divide by a negative, the inequality has to flip. When you divide by a negative, the inequality has to flip. So I'm talking about this inequality symbol right here, which means my equation now is going to be y is greater than or equal to, and then just do your division like normal. Okay, so this is my line. And remember, before I start graphing, I need to tell myself, so look at this and try this one on your own. I want you to pick solid or dashed, and then pick above or below. And you should be getting that this is solid, and we're going to shade above because it's greater than. So I'm going to graph like normal. I'm going to start at 8 on my y-axis. If I make my slope a fraction, that's 2 over 1. So I'm going to go, remember this is counting by 2, so up 2 over 1. And then I can also go down 2 and backwards 1, down 2, backwards 1. I'm going to keep this pattern going until I get all the way through the graph. It's really important that you go all the way through the graph, especially with what we're going to do next week and the rest of this week, so just keep that in mind. This time it's solid, so which means I can connect all of them. I don't have to skip and make it dashed. I can make it a solid line like we're used to. And this kind of gets tricky for people, so just watch what I'm going to do here. You can put your pencil down. Above or below. So I've got my yellow side, then I've got this purple side. Now you may not be able to tell what's above and what's below just by looking at it. But if you look at the y-axis, I'll keep those there. If you look at the y-axis specifically, so my y-axis, if I go up on the y-axis, that looks like I'm going to the yellow side. So the yellow is your above, which means my final answer here should be that solid line that I have drawn and this side of my graph shaded in. All right, so that's all that we have for today. Make sure that you have your notes taken. And I'm not even going to put essential questions on here because if you have all the notes taken, then you should be able to answer anything that we talk about tomorrow.